Yes, I'm thinking about ice cream.
Yeah, that's fine.
All right, let's go ahead and start today's class. Let me post the streaming link. All right, good evening. Let's go ahead and start today's class. So how was Saturday? You guys kind of getting hang of JavaScript?
No.
No?
I didn't like it. That rock, paper, scissors game threw me for a loop, man.
What was it? I see what you did over there. Yeah? So what was, it was for loops. What else was there? Was it just for loops? You guys didn't do objects, I know, because we are going to do that today.
My last like big section title was events and DOM manipulation.
Oh, okay, I see. Okay.
But, I don't remember learning it in DOM at all.
Right.
Those are like browsing pages.
Okay. Yeah. DOM. Okay. I can see DOM can be confusing. All right, guys. Let's pause and we're going to start. All right. So let's work on this, and then whatever time is remaining, you can work on your homework. DOM can be confusing. I understand that. We can. I can go over DOM again in the next class. Before we kick off jQuery, I can quickly give you an overview. So that shouldn't be a big issue. What else? You did the for loops. What about other than the DOM, what about the JavaScript part? You guys did for loops, DOM. What was that? Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay.
And then they were like, create this rock, paper, scissors game, even though we know you don't know JavaScript.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, how did that turn out? I saw some.
I honestly like barely even got my head around how to write
Right.
if else's.
Yeah.
And then even then, I learned at the end of class that I wrote that in a not smart way.
Well,
There's like a way to condense the logic.
Right. No, there's a way, and this is how you approach it. You write it in the worst way possible, and it's called brute force, and that's how the interviews also go, right? They give you a problem, and you write the problem, the first thing that comes into your mind, and it's probably going to be the worst solution. But what it gives you is gives you some points. It's not like you're standing blank and you're trying to come up with optimal solution. You never even come to the solution. What happens is when you write that solution, and then your interviewer or whoever is looking, they'll be like, okay, we see you got there, but you realize it's not the efficient way. I know it. Now you can think and try to come to that conclusion. So even with the rock paper, first you write the words, whatever, like long if statements, might be like 10 or 15 because there are like those permutations. Right. I'm trying to see how many permutations. If I'm writing each condition in just one line, right? Come to under 10, and then 9. Okay, and then you kind of try to see, okay, what is the common parts? You can collapse those, and then when you come to a 5 statement, then you say, okay, how further I can go. Eventually, you will see it comes down to like few lines, 6 or lines or something. Yeah.
It was jarring because the TA helped me. He was like, oh, you should think about it like this. I'm like, okay. And then like in the last 5 minutes,
Right.
Matt was like, you're wrong.
Right.
And I'm like, how did you get there?
Well, it's a process. I don't expect, and even I can't get over there. I have to write the whole thing first, and then I visualize. That's called the refactoring part, that you go back to your code and look at it and be like, okay, how can I make it better? And we'll see some of the techniques, how we get there. But again, it's a process, and it comes, to me, what I say is come naturally. Now, you cannot force that, okay, the first time I'm going to write a switch case statement or like a if binary statement or ternary statement or something. That's not going to happen. You write the regular one, and then you kind of come to that part. Anyway, okay. Let's see what we are. So today, let's see, before we jump into anything new, let's let's quickly do warm up activity about loops, because that's also very important. All right, let's do this together instead of everybody going off and doing separate things. All right, so let's see. So this is a JavaScript code, and then there are a few lines over here. The purpose of this exercise is we are trying to see and understand what's going on. All right, let's see. Kellen, line number 12. You see the question mark on line 11? So basically what it is saying is that what is going on the next line. So what's happening in line number 12?
Starting an array, or line 11?
Line number 12.
They're declaring variables and then starting an array.
Okay, you're declaring a variable and starting an array. All right, I get the idea what he's saying, and that's correct. What is happening is I'm declaring an array, and what is inside the array?
Nothing.
Nothing. It's an empty array. So I'm declaring an empty array. And what is the data type that's inside my array? Is it a string, number?
Right now, nothing.
Right now, nothing. So I don't know what it is. It can be anything. All right, good. Let's see. Line number 18. Christine, did I say that name?
Yes.
Okay. Line number 19.
Mm-hmm.
What is going on line number 18, please?
It's asking you what your favorite TV show is.
Okay, awesome. Yeah.
It's prompting you.
It is prompting you. All right. So, and prompt is a function. All right. Prompt function asking favorite TV show. Excellent. So on line number 18, it's a simple prompt, and I'm asking, what is your favorite show? Oh, I skipped the line number 15. Let's see. Blair, what's in line number 15? Well, line number 16. So 15, the question is, for loop elements repeat how many times?
You're setting the variable as the iterator. You're setting the. About it.
Make it bigger?
Names. I know the last one's increment.
Okay. So what is a for loop? What does a for loop do?
It's a way to repeat
I know.
a piece of code.
Repeat piece of code, exactly. So it is repeating what piece of code? Between lines number 16 to 23, right? So repeating. Now the question, how many times is it repeating?
For as long as I is less than 4.
Yeah.
Okay, so right. So what's the? Give me a number.
3.
3. Okay. What? And how is it 3? It repeats for I equal to 1, then 2, and then 3. It doesn't go 4 because less than the condition stops at 3. Okay. Excellent. So it is repeating 3 times.
Why is the var listed as 1 instead of 0?
You can. This is just a different way. Why do you think it is listed as 1? Why didn't I start as 0? You answered the line number 19, right? Read line number 19.
Uh-huh.
Where is I being used?
In the question.
Okay. If I started with 0, what's going to happen? What is the sentence going to read? If I start I with 0, what is the sentence going to become? Oops.
Oh.
Right? What's your number 0 favorite TV show? Now, as programmers, we understand. We're like, yeah, I get it.
Yeah.
But as normal human beings, number 0 would be like, I don't know what you're asking. So basically, to start the numbering from 1, and that's the reason that the for loop is starting from 1. Okay? All right, let's see. John, 21. So line number 22. What is happening over here? So let's start with, break it down. What's favorite TV shows? What is this? It is what? variable, but what kind of a variable?
Sorry, it's your undefined array.
It's an array, yeah. So instead of saying variable, you're right. You say it's an array. Okay.
Okay.
All right. Let's come to this. What is push? What does it look like?
Well, it is a function of.
Function. Excellent. You guys see it? Yeah.
So I
Right.
don't know what it does.
Right. I know. Excellent. And we'll get to it. So favorite TV shows and array. Okay.
Yep.
Array, and then push is a function. Now I don't know what push does. I can Google push really quickly, look at the documentation. But take a guess what's happening over here. I am doing a push, and what is my argument? Yes, Jay. What is the argument? Okay, this TV show. Where is TV show? What is TV show? It's prom. So what is prom returning, Jay?
You are pushing a TV show into your.
Exactly. And what am I getting? It's a prompt, and it returns a string, right? Whatever you type it in, it's going to return a string, which will be your favorite TV show. It's going to store this in the TV show variable. All right?
So
And then what is it doing? Array dot push, and push whatever it is over here. So we saw the array. Array can store multiple items, multiple elements, right? So dot push should give me an indication that I'm pushing this into this array.
So it's
Yes.
kind of like saving it.
Saving it. Saving it to this.
Yeah. And
Yep.
last question. So is it kind of like the console log?
Console log doesn't save it. It
But
spits
it
it
will
out.
give you that information.
It just stores in this information. Yeah, that's all it does.
Okay.
In order
Yeah.
for this function to work properly, it has to be in that order.
What order?
Like from the TV show prompt to your last two words.
Yep. So if I do this after this, I won't have anything
We won't know what
to
the TV show
push.
is.
If I declare this after this, what's going to happen? It doesn't know what TV show is. Might give you an undefined. All right. So yeah, the order kind of matters. All right. So I have a string. So when I do a push, and from prompt I'm getting a string. What is my array now? What is the data type of my array? What type of elements I'm storing in my array after this line? String. Excellent. So I'm storing this. This becomes an array of strings after this point. All right. You see how JavaScript is working? At this point, JavaScript doesn't know. But as soon as you push the first variable, the data type is going to make it an array of strings after this. Okay. All right, Bryce. Line number 26. Similar. What's happening in line number 26?
It's a for loop. We're saying creating a variable j, setting it to 0,
Okay.
and saying for as long as j is less than fave TV shows the whole length of it,
Okay.
add 1.
Excellent. If you had to take a guess, what's the length? Look at line number 16 to 23. What do you think might be the length? So at line number 24, this part will be completed. All right. What would be, when you come over here, what's going to be the length?
3.
3. And how is it 3?
Is this going to prompt you 3 times?
Right. Because I'm pushing it 3 times over here. 1, 2, 3. Right. So my length is going to be 3. Excellent. So Bryce is saying that I am looping through favorite TV shows array. How many times? 3 times. Because the length is 3. Okay. Let me correct this. With length 3. Okay, and how many times, Bryce, am I looping this? If the length is 3? 3 times. This time is starting from 0. 0, 1, 2. It stops at 2 because the length is 3. Alright? Andrew, last one?
It's
29.
an alert function. It's going to display the array of all the shows implemented.
Excellent. You guys see it? So now, what am I doing here? I'm accessing each element of that array. Alright? That wasn't too bad. Questions? It's going to get a hang of it for loop. Alright? You will see your for loops usually are, will be used on arrays because you see it's loops through some repetitive code, and that's why the for loop is used. There are some more loops, and we'll look at some more complicated ones. They're kind of complicated, but they have their use also. It's kind of easy to, once you get them, it's easy to write them. But the simplest case, you write a for loop through if you're trying to loop through an array. Okay. All right. Let's. Awesome job, guys. I'm glad you got something out of Saturday. Not like. Yes, Randy.
Question.
Yes.
Do you mind showing me real quick what is the array favorite TV show? I mean, what's in that array?
What's in this array? So right now, line number 12, it's an empty array. All right. After this, line number 19, I'm saying, they're asking a favorite TV show. Every time pop-up comes up, you type something in, stores here, then it goes and pushes to this array.
Okay, I got it. I just missed the first part.
Yeah. Awesome. All right, let's see. All right, so today we are going to cover some more advanced topics of JavaScript. I know I heard you guys was talking, kind of seems like this, you know, but what do I say? You have to. It just takes practice. If you don't go back, if you're not practicing, it's not going to get any easier. It's going to get harder day by day. In today's lecture, by the end of today's lecture, you will be like, oh my god, that's like so many more concepts. But again, as I say, this week is the basic of JavaScript. By basic, it doesn't mean it's easy. It just means it's a foundation. All right. Next week, we are going to look at some more advanced concepts. For at least 2 weeks, we are going to do JavaScript and jQuery. We'll talk about that. But today we are going to look at functions, a more detailed look. I'm going to explain what functions are. We have used it. We kind of know it. So this will be kind of a good transition to it, right? How do we create functions? What does it mean? Then we are going to look at JavaScript objects. This is a really, really important topic. You have to understand what JavaScript objects are. All right? Why? Because JavaScript objects rule the web. The data that you get in is always going to be in objects. These days, you might have heard of JSON, JSON. It's JavaScript objects. So you have to understand what they are, how they work, and how do you access it. All right, very, very important. And then we'll see what the application is towards that. Okay. All right, so you will see me, we're kind of slowly transitioning away from the slides. We'll still have a PowerPoint. I'm going to upload that. I think it will continue until like couple of weeks. Eventually, I don't like slides, so we're going to go away from the slide. We'll be doing a lot more coding. I'm going to show you examples, and then you guys will be doing it. Okay? Well, let's start with the first thing. Okay, this is it. Let me see. Okay. All right. Let's make sure.
You always have to put the var, or like the constant. If you just give it a name, it'll just know. Like I've seen some people just write it with a name.
Sorry, what was the question? What is it?
Well, I mean, because I've seen people write it without like var or like the constant. Like, especially at the top of JavaScript, it'll just be like, they'll declare variables, but they just are giving them name. They're not using the var tag. I mean, you have to do that?
Yes, you have to use that. Without that, no, because you are telling JavaScript that this is a variable. If you just put in a random literal over there, it's not going to know what's happening. Yeah, so it must be declared somewhere. Yes.
Isn't it like the first time that you declare it, you have to say variable, but then after that you can override it by just
Yeah. So as Ali is saying, the first time you have to declare somewhere declared on the top, and then you can reference it anywhere without using the var type. So what is going on over here? Joffrey, go ahead, tell me.
You're just giving the heroes and having an array with the different heroes.
Right, and what am I doing? I'm declaring. How do you know this is declared? Because I'm using the var keyword. Right, so I'm declaring new arrays.
Okay. So
Okay.
So you use that to make sure.
Right.
I get it.
Yeah. And now if I want to loop through these arrays, right? So what do I have to do?
Whoa, what was that? You did some cool things.
So in Visual Studio, you can, if you type in for, it gives you option. I just press enter, it will auto complete it for you. All right. But right now, we are not going to go in this detail. So I'm going to use complete, and then I'm going to change it so that something that we are more familiar with, and at some point we'll go through what it actually did. But for now, this should be familiar to us. For var I equal to 0, right? Array.length. This is wrong, so I need to put in this. All right. So my purpose over here is that I'm trying to log whatever inside my array is, right? And then what do? I just do heroes, right? And then I. Okay. Let me go ahead and. So I already have this kind of template already created, so that I don't have to keep creating these files. Okay, so it reloads, it writes my details. Okay, now if I have to do the second one, what do I have to do? Same thing. I'm just going to copy paste. All right, this time let's go ahead and change these. I'm going to make it a new variable j. All right, I'm looping through, and this time my array is this. And this time it's going to, this should write my superheroes array. All right, so it's giving me undefined. What am I missing here? j.len, j++, console log, superhero movies. Anything that stands out? Huh? What did I do with what?
It's just the cursor.
Oh, it's just the cursor.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah. So well, something is wrong, but I can see it. What is? Does anything pop out? Huh? Yeah, so you see it's like looping indefinitely. I should probably go ahead and stop it before it crashes. But something is wrong. What is huh? I can't see it, to be honest, actually. Var j equals to, maybe I should just run it again and see. Huh. No. It works now. Yeah. Might be because I have the live server is continuously updating as soon as I'm running, so I might be changing values and it was running. Anyway, so now what do I have to do the third error? Same thing, right? I'm going to stop this so that it doesn't run. Do it k, change this, okay, and then change the name. And this should write all my stuff here. Okay. So it's kind of, you see what's going on. It's kind of pain. You're repeating a lot of code. Okay. Now, one of the main principles of software engineering you learn is DRY. It stands for do not repeat yourself. Okay, DRY principle, and that's where the coding part comes in. If you are repeating this much code, there's always going to be a better way to do it. Okay. Let's suppose I got lazy and I only did 3 arrays, but let's suppose there are 5. So that you have to do this 5 times, right? It's just repeating code. The purpose of this exercise is you just want to output whatever these arrays contain, all right? But for each one, I have to keep writing this code so that I can see what's going on, okay? So to follow this principle, we come to functions. All right, we have seen what functions does. The purpose of function is if you have repeatable code, you take the repeatable code and put it into a function, and then you call that function instead of rewriting this whole thing. All right. What's the disadvantage of this approach? That if I change anything over here, I have to go make sure that everything is kind of fixed. All right. Right now there's only like 10, 16 lines, but if you have a bigger code and a lot of the stuff is repeating, if you change at one place, you have to change at different places. Functions will give us the ability that you change it in one place and it's going to update everywhere because there's only one function, right? Let's see how it looks like. Let's start here. So we have seen calling function, console log. We saw prompt, alert, right? What that means is these are functions and you are using them. You are calling these functions, right? What we have not seen is how do you define a function. Well, I saw some of your guys' code and I see you guys have already created functions. But this is how you create a function. The keyword is function, then you give a name, and then you give params. Let's see what this is. So output, let's say console log arrays. I'm calling this a function. Function is usually a verb, generally, because function is something that is an action. You're going to do something. So I'm going to call this console log arrays. You see the camel casing, same standards. Again, you can name it anything you want, but I'm going to follow the good standards. I'm going to use camel casing. All right, my function names are also camel case. All right, so I'm going to say console log arrays, and then within this, these are called parameters. Okay, you can have 1, you can have 2, you can have as many as you like. I think it goes up to like 300-400 or something. But anything that goes in the parentheses are called parameters. Okay. So let's go ahead and create a parameter saying input array. Right? And you can just write a name. It's just like a variable name. You don't have to define it. If it's a number, it's a string. You don't have to do any of those things. Why not? Because JavaScript is going to go through your code and kind of take a guess. So you don't have to do anything. You can have count, or let's say length of array. I'm just adding this. We don't need it. I'm just adding. To show you that you can add multiple parameters. All right. Length of the array kind of gives you an indication this is going to be a number. Input array gives you an indication this is going to be an array that I'm going to pass in. All right. Now, what do I want to do with this input array? I want to console log it. I'm going to remove all of this. All right. What did I do? I'm getting a parameter. I'm getting an input array, and I'm looping through that array. And then I'm outputting something. I'm outputting whatever the contents of this array is. Okay? Yes, Matt.
Why did you define a second parameter?
Right. As I said, just to show you guys that I can have multiple parameters. All right. So we can use this one also. And let's suppose I can say log and then say length of input array is length of array. Okay.
It can be any name you want.
It can be any name you want, any name that makes sense to you, and then whoever is looking at your code makes sense to them also. All right. Now here's the funny part. I can totally change this. What just happened? I made length of array, which is wrong, as an array. Right? JavaScript is totally fine with it. Right? It will still work as long as you pass an array over here. All right. As I said, JavaScript takes a guess. All right. At this point, JavaScript has no idea what is the type of this. Right? It doesn't care. It doesn't know. When it runs, then it's going to realize what I did, and then it's going to start complaining by the time I get over here. Okay. So this was just to show that at this point, JavaScript has no idea what the data type of this is, what is the data type of this. But if you want this to work, you have to make sure that you have the right variables in place and everything. Okay? All right. Any questions before we go forward? Does everybody get an idea? Yes, Geoffrey.
Well, so you're writing this for the top one. I mean, how is it going to know to do all the arrays?
Input array. Where is the input array in the top?
So it's going to go through all of them?
We'll see how it goes through. But you see, it's a generic name. There's no input array over here. Okay. So these parameters are irrespective of what do you have not. It doesn't care.
So
These parameters come into play within the functions. Okay?
So
All right.
It's just gonna list it all.
We'll see how it should list it all. But I'll show you how to make that work. But in this part, what I'm concerned is only with these two variables. I can only use these two variables as a reference. All right? I can loop through this thing. I can console log this thing, or I can declare a new variable. Okay, but what I cannot do is I cannot do this. It doesn't exist. Right? Input array 2. There's no input array 2 over here. Okay? Alright? So what I'm concerned is anything that I'm passing in. Alright? So what am I saying is that I'm going to pass an array. Alright? What you have to do is when I call this function, you will loop through and then output this array. Alright? At this point. Now how do I pass in? So this is called declaring or defining a function. Okay, but declaring and defining doesn't is not complete. You have to call that function. Call, or you will hear this word also, or invoke the function. Okay.
Which is what the push one was doing.
Exactly. Yep. Push, console log, prompt, all of those you are calling that function, right? You don't know what is. Do you know the code behind the prompt? You don't know. We don't see it, right? The code is hidden from us. But right now we are learning how to write that code, how to define those functions, and that's why we know what's going on over here. How do you call it? You just say console log arrays, parentheses, and then how many parameters? I have 2. So my function is expecting 2 parameters. All right. So I need to pass in, so I can pass in an array, one of these. Let's pass in heroes. Okay. And I have to pass in the length of the array. So I can just say heroes dot length.
How different is this when you're writing on an external? Oh,
We are in JavaScript. Yep. External. Okay. All right. So this part is calling. If you do not call this, the functions are not valid. I mean, it doesn't do anything unless you call these functions. Okay. So you have to define, and then you have to call or invoke these functions, and then whatever it is expecting. So my function expecting 2 parameters, and then I pass in 2 parameters. Here's the thing. Technically, when I define a function, these are called parameters. When you're calling a function, these are called arguments. So I'm calling my console log arrays with 2 arguments. Again, this is the technical lingo. You will hear people using both names interchangeably. So everybody would call these also parameters and these also parameters, or you will hear people calling these also arguments and these also arguments. It's fine because as you're coding, people understand what you're trying to say. But usually, I've seen some people ask in the interview just to confuse people because technically there's a difference. When you are calling a function, you call these arguments, and when you're defining a function, you call the same thing as parameters. It's just a technical lingo. Okay? Just if somebody asks you, tries to trick you, you know the difference. Otherwise, you will hear people calling. You can call these both arguments. You can call both of these parameters.
Man, I already forgot what you said.
Okay. All right. Just understand one of them, and then Google what's the difference between parameters and arguments. All right.
I tried to remember, but it just was.
Okay. Let's go ahead and run this. And so, what should be the output? It's going to give me the first array. Okay. So you see the length of the input array is 7, and this is my line, and then it goes through and outputs the first array. Yes, sir.
Is it possible to add other variables, like where you have your arguments listed zeros and zeros length? Can you list the other variables as well there? To have, say, those superhero names? Could you list that in there as well?
Right.
At the same time?
Right. So if I list it over there, what do you have to do in the code? Well, what John is.
So if you added more parameters, you have to go in
And then add more stuff. So how about if you do this instead?
Sure. I was just trying to say that
All right. So it's the same thing. What you are saying, you can do it, but you'll be adding more code. Why? Because let's see what I have to do. If I say superhero movies, let's say I'm passing this, right? And then I have to change. I have to copy and write another loop so that I can loop through this also now. You see? And that is the exact thing I'm trying to avoid. I don't want to keep repeating this code. Okay? And then if I want the third one, I just call the same function with a different argument. Oh, I already did this one. You see? Now let's suppose.
Still have to write 3 lines of that code.
What is it?
So somewhere you still have to write out the 3.
Yes, you still have to write these 3. Now what are you not repeating? You're not repeating this code. What is happening is, now let's suppose if I, for all the 3 arrays, I have to exclude the first one. I don't want the 0th element. I want to start from the 1, right? You see, I just change over here and everything is good. In the previous code, I had like 3 arrays. I have to go and change in the first, then second, then third. If you have 5 here. Yeah. It's a small example, but you will see that once we start writing more functions, you will see how they kind of reduce the amount of code, amount of mistakes we can make. All right, we're kind of reducing. Now we are only concerned with these, literally these 3 lines. All right, I can change the index number. All 3 will be affected. I can change the ending also, and all 3 will be affected. All right, that's what kind of functions provide us.
Well, how does it know the arrays? Because this is crazy. You can just name anything in JavaScript.
Yeah, I told you the first, right? What is the JavaScript is an interpretive language. It interprets. All right, it doesn't know. Yeah, it takes a guess by looking at your data, right? And that's one of the weirdest thing about JavaScript. No other, well, other languages, they kind of already know. As soon as you write the code, you should tell them what it is. But JavaScript is interesting because when it runs, then it takes a guess and sees. And that's why you don't see errors. It will silently die. It will bring the whole site down. So I don't know what you did over here. It's your problem. Okay? All right. Any other questions? Okay? Yes. Yeah. So I have my movies, I have my characters, and then the real names. with the length of each array. When the array begins, it outputs the length.
Why is it different length?
Why is it different length? You tell me why is it different length? Because these are different numbers. I just got lazy by the end, so I didn't. That's why. Okay.
Leave me to put Deadpool in there.
Ah, man, I included this time. I included the ladies also. Every time there's.
Seriously.
You can't please everybody.
Yeah, can't please everybody. All right, so let's go ahead and do an exercise of functions. Take a look at it, and then we will come back to the next one. Let's see. Let's take a look what the exercise says. My first functions. Oh, okay. Let's take 15 minutes.
I don't like the tone of your
Yeah.
voice.
I looked at the exercise.
It sounds like you're not even excited. Yeah.
No, I'm excited about this exercise. Yeah. Uh-huh. Functions is plural, so you have multiple functions to write in that exercise. So we'll take 15 minutes to do this one, start on it, and then maybe in like 5 or 6 minutes, I'm going to start coding it also. So if you're stuck somewhere, take a look at it, how, what's the solution, and you can ask questions also. What was that?
Streaming the class.
That was you.
Push the wrong button.
Oh. Okay.
Push the wrong button, sorry.
Let's see. Okay, so you already have the initial code, at least. Which one?
The is string.
Yeah, yeah.
Talked about type of or anything.
Okay, yeah. So let's look at the README. So in this, by the time you get to the end, these are the more kind of a little bit complex ones. Look at the documentation. I'll go, as I'm solving, I will go through that also, but it's a good exercise to look at the documentation. The link is already there, but this is towards the end. All right, let's see what you have to do. All right, so you have to write 4 functions. That's about it. Only 4. That's it. Create a function called adder that takes 3 arguments. Okay. I would change this to parameters just to be right. The function should add the parameters together and log the result to the console. So what's the syntax? I write a function. You guys getting this? As soon as you type in function, it kind of auto completes it. Do you guys have that? Okay. Kind of. What else do you want? It
I mean,
puts
it sounds like multiple different functions, and if you click the wrong one, it.
Oh yeah, yeah.
It just
Like
goes, oh, you just wanted function.
Yeah.
That's not
So I have to give this a name. So adder. three parameters x, y, and z. X, y, z. That's it. What do you have to do in the function? You have to add these three. Okay? So you can say var, I'm going to calculate result is equal to x plus y plus z. Simple. And what do I do?
Yeah, simple.
Simple, not easy.
Simple.
Right? You just have to understand what the requirement is. But literally, you see, it's like 4 lines.
But it says parameters, not arguments. Oh,
Yeah.
you changed it.
I changed it to parameters. Yeah, I'm already on top of that. Okay? Oh, no, this language. It's still the same thing. Argument, it doesn't matter.
Right.
But I just changed it. Okay, you guys saw how I did the add one? Let's do the second one. Here's a lot of the time you will see, there's a little bit redundancy, but this is also okay. But once you are like a little bit more comfortable with it, I would just do this too. Yeah?
That's how I had it originally.
Yeah.
I did it wrong.
Okay, so you're already comfortable with it, so. No, you didn't do it. So there are different ways to write the same thing, and if it's the output is right, then yeah.
You did it right.
Yeah, you did it right. Okay.
Oh, we have instructions. We need all of them.
Second one, same function. Call it multiplier. How many arguments? 3. X, Y, Z. And then console log the multiplication. So X star Y star Z. For multiplication, this is the operator star or asterisk. Okay, so these two are easier one. Let's look at the next one. A function called isString. Right, any questions on these two? Anybody? Yes, Joe?
So first you have the variable results, you don't have to get that, you just in the function.
All right, so what I was saying that this is a, you can do it different ways. You can also do var create a variable and assign the result to it and then output that. Also, both are correct ways. It's just if you want to take that, this is kind of redundant because you are using this and then outputting this, you can just copy this and paste it over there. It does the same work. Whatever the result is.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you don't need, that's just extra.
Yeah, just extra, yeah. It kind of clarifies, it looks nice if you want that, but you can do it in one step. Huh?
It's extra.
It's extra. Yeah, it's redundant. Yes, Jeff.
So, in your code, if you wanted to reuse the function, but didn't want to cite a console log every time, you want to do a different thing with it, is that when you use the variable? Or
Yes.
Like,
Right. Yeah, yeah. If I'm using the result to divide with something else now, right? So I would use that. Yeah, totally. Yeah. For this case, it's extra, but yeah. Right. Read the documentation of type of. Anybody looking at that?
Start typing and hit
Type of.
and dot. You always have to. If you want to access that.
So MDN is Mozilla Firefox people. They kind of have the JavaScript documentation. That's kind of official documentation. You can also refer to W3 schools. But take a look at the documentation and try to understand what type of is doing. They have a nice console. You can change stuff, run it, kind of get an idea what's happening. Bree, what do you think is happening? First, like.
It's finding all of the numbers.
No, go ahead. Just line number 1. Start from the beginning.
Oh, so we're logging the type of
Console logging, okay.
expected output will be a number.
Type of 42, yeah.
Yes,
So what is it output?
a number. A
Say the
string
number.
of numbers.
No, just a number. This is the output. Yep. See. Number. Yeah, yeah. Nothing else, right? Everything is after that. Yeah, you're right. Okay. Number. So you see, anything that I type in that is a number, it will literally just output a string called number. Okay. What happens this one?
It's gonna output a string.
It's going to output the string. Yeah, it's going to output string. So what is happening? Type of is telling you what is the data type of this data. That's what it is.
If you, for the type of with the string, if you just left the quotations, would it still find a string? Would you have to write a word into it?
So if I did what? If I left this out?
So if you didn't have lover there and you just had the quotation for like a single or a double, would it still know it's a string?
Like this?
It's an empty string, right?
It's an empty string.
Okay.
So,
Yeah. It still says string. Second is boolean, so it will say boolean. And if you type in something like this, anything that it's not codes, it's not boolean, it's not a number, then it doesn't know. It will output undefined.
so was it type of is string?
As far as type of is concerned, this is the syntax. Type of, and then you put something. Okay. Now let's see what the requirement is. So you have to create a function isString. So let's start with that first. Create a function called isString. All right. Does it take any parameters? Yes. X, Y, Z. Okay. Now what am I doing? What is the requirement?
Should it test to see if there's strings that logs the appropriate response to the console?
Test if. Okay. If all of these three are strings. Alright. What does it tell you? If statement is coming. Alright? Because you have to check that if each one of these is a string. Okay? That's if each one of these. This has to be a string, and this has to be a string, and this has to be a string. You see how I'm getting from each to and? Alright? It cannot be if this is a string, or this is a string, or this is a string. The requirement says and. They all have to be a string. And then if they all are string, we console log. Okay? So let's start with the first. If statement is coming, so I write a if. Okay? Now what's going to be my condition? I'm checking the first one. If, so I want to see the type. If this is a string. So looking at this syntax, it says I just have to do type of, and then in double quotes or single quote, I can put what I'm checking. So I say type of X. Do I have to put quotations, double quotes over here, or single quotes? No, why not? Because it's a variable. My variable is supposedly a string. When I call this function, I have to pass it as a string. Alright? Right now, looking at this code, I cannot tell whether it is a number or a string, but that's what my purpose of this function is. It is going to create three parameters and going to determine if this is a string, if this is a string, if this is a string. Okay? So I'm saying if type of X is string. Do we have to do what? No, go ahead. What is the question?
Like, I typed in string and I put string and I hit it and it's like capitalized and it's a different color than I've ever seen before.
Right. So the question is, does it have to be exactly this word? It has to be exactly this word. It has to be lowercase string. The reason is because when we console log, this is what JavaScript spits out and this is what it is expecting. It is only going to understand if this type of X is this. If you do this, it doesn't understand what uppercase string is. It's only looking for lowercase string. Alright, case sensitive. Right? So I'm saying if X is a string, this means everything is good. Alright? This is just one condition right now. Any questions on that before we proceed? Okay? Now I have to check for Y, I have to check for Z also, right? And then what did I say? It has to be AND. If this is string and type of Y is also a string, okay? And type of Z is also a string. I'm going to put this in different lines so they're kind of easy to read. Okay, you see what I did? So I'm checking each one of them. I'm checking if this is a string, if Y is also a string and Z is also a string, then only say they all are string. Okay, and we can check this. Let's call this function over here. How do you call it? This is not secure. Is string, and then I have to pass in 3 arguments. Let's pass in the good one first. So I say A, B, C. Yeah. Right, so I get an output saying they all are string. I'm calling my function, I'm passing this. Now if I pass this as a number, it doesn't say anything. Okay, why doesn't it say anything? Because it's not written, and I don't have else. So just to put something, I can add a else saying one of them is not a string. Okay, now you see one of them is not a string. Again, declaration is important, but if you don't call this function, nothing happens. So at the bottom, you have to call this function. If I don't call this function, right, nothing happens. It's just like empty. Yes?
Why did you do ABC instead of XYZ when you have the string XYZ?
Okay, so guys, over here, these parameters are variables. Alright, you can put them anything. Alright, these are variables.
Don't they have to match with what?
They don't have to match.
It's just telling your
It's kind of like a placeholder. Yes,
Okay.
it is telling them what to expect. What matters is what you pass in over here and the number. So if you have 3 parameters, you have to pass in 3 arguments. You can pass in less. I'm not going to go over there right now, but if there are 3, then you have to pass in 3, and the order also matters. All right, X, Y, and Z, and whatever you pass in the first gets assigned to X. So what behind the scene, what is happening? If I pass in 2, B, and C, it is basically it is doing is X is equal to 2, Y is equal to A, right, and Z is equal to B. This is what is happening behind the scene.
Can you put the same XYZ?
Yeah, you can pass in X, Y, Z. It doesn't matter. Over here, yeah, you can pass in X, Y, and Z, or you can do this, but that's not the purpose. The purpose is I'm trying to check anything if this is a string or not. I can, is this a string? I can totally do this too. Is this too? This is also a string, but this is not a string. So these are what you want to check you're passing in, right? These are the real values. These are just placeholders like a variable name that are going to get assigned whatever values you pass in. Yes, Ali.
For the adder and multiplier functions, I just had, when I tried it myself, I just had console.log. Oh, yeah, okay, you did do that. But in the other one, I did it the first one.
Yeah.
The adder one, I didn't make variable result.
Yeah.
So it's fine.
It's still fine.
Okay.
Yeah. It's kind of redundant anyway for this use case, but those are also fine.
So
Yes.
let me restate something.
Yes.
So isString is the name of the function, and you can use isString over and over again.
Yes.
In different scenarios.
Exactly. Yes, I can keep using this over and over again. Let's suppose now I want to check if these are strings. This is my use case. Yeah, keep using it.
Does it append to the previous function?
There's no append. So I know what you mean, but the word append is used in a different purpose. It's not appending, it's not adding anything. It's just executing this, and then it's going to go ahead and execute this, then this, then this, then this. There's no append or anything.
Okay, so then that those parameters then are once the next function runs, then
Yes.
the parameters that are in there are
Yes.
removed,
Yeah.
and it goes to the next.
Right. If they are independent. This function doesn't know what this is. There's no relationship. Yeah. Totally independent.
So the arguments are really what you want to know what you're testing.
Yes, these are not. Yeah, that's what you're testing. Those are placeholders, and then you pass in something to do something. All right. Now, if you look at this, let's suppose that this was a JavaScript function, is string. From the documentation, you would know that, oh, I have something, I want to check if this is a string or not. That's it. Right? But this time we wrote the function, basically you understand what is going on over here. Right? So similarly, if you look at this console.log, log is a function which prints out on the console. Right? So you can take a guess that behind the scenes, log has must be doing something. It might be referring to this, getting something, and then putting it over there. Right? Same with prompt, same with any function that you use. Okay?
So once you create a function, can't you use it over and over? Like put it in another code. Like say you write.
Oh. So there are ways, but you have to have a reference point. This function only resides in this file. But you can create a general JavaScript file, and then you have to add it to your project, and then you can start using that function, but it has to have a reference. Remember, like Bootstrap, it has to have a reference. You cannot start using Bootstrap unless you have that reference. So everything is about reference.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Anything else? All right. So let's look at the next one. Did this. All right. Let's take a look at the next topic, and then we'll take a break. Oops. Okay. Okay, let's look at this one. What is this? Okay, so we saw arrays, we saw loops. Arrays are kind of good for this. So let's suppose I have a scenario. I have a array of numbers, and what I want to do is I want to find if the numbers in this array, what are the numbers that are greater than 2? Okay, so my case is that I have a given array over here, right? And I have to write code to find out the numbers in this array which are greater than 2, right? How do you start it? The first thing, if it's an array is involved, you start with a for loop, because you want to go to each element, and you have to check if it's greater than 2, right? Okay, so what do? I start with a for loop through the whole array, and then I check if this number is greater than 2. So how does this loop through? Starts with the first one. It will check, is 1 greater than 2? No, that's going to output number is not greater than 2. Then it comes to 8. It checks for 8. If 8 is greater than 2, yes, it's going to output number is greater than 2. Okay, then it comes to 2. Is 2 greater than 2? No. So it will output number is not greater than 2. Right? Similarly for 3, and then it's going to do 1, 1, 6, 6, 6. Okay? Everybody understand this algorithm? Any questions on this?
Can you do that, like, for instance, if you did with our alphabet thingy, whatever the game?
Yeah.
So if you said if the whatever number of the index is equal to,
Yeah.
like, and instead of using 2, can you put like the index? Because I figured there just has to be an easier way to run through all of the things in the index to see if it matches.
Given our knowledge, this is the only way to run through the whole. If you're trying to run through the whole array, so you have to go element by element by element. Now, what you're saying, if there is a more efficient way to come to this conclusion, there is, but it's kind of very it's a little bit higher scope right now. With our knowledge, yes, there are more efficient algorithms. That's why I use the word. That's kind of towards the end. We'll see some really efficient people have worked on it to reduce the number of iterations and all that, but those still a little bit more complicated. But my purpose of this is that arrays are kind of good for this. That if you have an array, you'll want to find a number that is greater than 2. It's kind of good for this part, right? Everybody understands that it's kind of easier to write this algorithm. Kind of tells you what's going on. Okay. Now, what arrays are not good for are what kind of makes it a little bit more more complicated is, let me open this example that I have. Okay. This one, yeah. Okay, so what is going on over here? What? What did I say? Oh, there's no spoiler. Is there? Line number?
11. I know, it was like, the movie's not even out yet. Just drop it on.
What?
Nobody knows. First of all, we're not reading comic books. I'm not 50.
What? What am I looking for? Okay. All right. So all right. Real quick. What is going on over here? What do you have? You have 2 arrays. Everybody see the 2 arrays? I just put in different lines, but these are 2 arrays with elements. Okay. And then, do you see a relationship between these 2 arrays?
Yes.
Right? You see the relationship? The link up. They correspond. The first index or the 0th index correspond to the 0th index of the second array. The first index correspond to the first, third, second correspond to the second, third, and fourth. Right? You see the relationship? So you see the relationship? This one corresponds to this.
Oh.
This corresponds to this. This corresponds to this. This to this. This to this. Right? You see, there's a relationship. All right. It's easier for us to see. How do you tell? How do I, if I want to get the real name? Right. What's the real name? Carol Danvers. All right. How do I get this? How do I write a program? How do I tell the computer to get me this output? Yes, Ivana. What was that? You don't?
Respect. I don't know the others.
Oh, no. So again, that's not the purpose. The purpose is, but do you see the relationship?
I do,
that,
but if
okay.
you can tell, I
Yeah.
would be like, okay.
Yeah, that's okay. As long as you see the relationship.
Console log the index number?
Console log. Awesome. What do I do?
Console log the index number?
Console log the index number. Okay. What do you mean console log the index number?
So console log and then
console log
So you log the variable.
You log the variable.
Yeah, so Captain Marvel info values.
This one, okay.
Square brackets.
Okay. And then what?
Put the index.
So 0. Okay. So I know that 0 at 0 this is it, right? If I want to change my input changes to for, I have to go and update 1, right? So this is still, I'm looking at this and trying to determine a relationship, and then I'm putting this over here. This works, but is there any other way without me putting? Can I get this 0? How do I? You're right on the right path. How do I tell the computer that this is at 0 index? Is there a way?
Could you, I don't know what it would look like, but could you say that declare that Captain Marvel info parts and Captain Marvel info values equal the same index, so index 0 equals index 0 of the 2.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
You don't want to use a variable.
I don't want to use index 0.
Oh, I thought
Well,
you did. Sorry.
No, I want to, but I look at it and then I know, or we know that this is at 0. But I'm kind of hard coding over here that I'm kind of forcing that, saying, okay, this is there, right? And this is the input. So what I want to get is this. How do I get this from this? Okay, this, what does this give me? This gives me the element, right? 0 will give me this, right?
Yes.
Is there a way that I put in this and it tells me the index? Index off. That's it. You see what I'm doing over here? Let's take a look what I just said. Dot index off. See what did I do? So if I already have this, right?
Oh.
I already have this. This is given to me. I want to find what is the index number over here. If I do 0, what if I change this and I put real name here, right, instead of over here? So if I'm still using the index 0, this kind of fails, right? I have to go and change my code. But with this one, it doesn't matter where real name is, it will tell me the index, right? You see it? And then I can use this. Let's declare a variable. And then I can use this sim index in this array, and then get the value for real name.
So index of, is that a function?
Yeah, you guys use it in the first day, remember? Index of. That's what I'm saying. Go back and do the activities.
It was in that 13 activity that you had us do, or told us to do that with how new functions. And
Yeah.
I thought it was going to come up on Saturday, and I was so lost because it didn't. And I was
Okay.
like, I thought you were preparing us for Saturday's class.
Yeah.
I'm so mad.
But you did the 12 exercises at least?
I
Okay,
did all
so
of them, and I did
you
the
remember the
13.
index of?
The 13 was in the, or the index of was in the 13.
Remember this was in a previous one also. It was a bonus part in a previous activity before 13.
Oh, those are those more. I didn't.
What? Do the bonuses also.
Yeah.
Alright, yes, Matt.
Info parts in the bar.
What is it? Oh yeah, I just copied the wrong one. Sorry. Good catch. Okay, you guys see what happened? So I can use this and get this, right? But still, this is the drawback. I mean, for humans it is easy to see the relationship, but as in arrays, it's kind of difficult. I have to write this and kind of try to come up with the relationship. Anything changes, my whole relationship is kind of like destroyed. All right. So because of this, we are transitioning into the kind of like the last data type we saw. We have seen strings, right? We have seen number. We saw Boolean, and then we saw arrays, and the last one is objects. Okay. So how do you donate or when you write an array, what's the symbol? Like square brackets, right? This tells you this is an array. For objects, it's curly brackets. If you see var name is equal to this thing, this should tell you that this is an object. Okay? All right, let's take a, yeah, go ahead, question.
Well, I'm just trying to read your statement.
Okay.
Is it info values first and then parts second, or is it really parts first and then values second?
Actually, you are right. I have it backward. Thank you.
Alright, I thought I was missing something.
No, you're right. I just have it backward. Yeah, thank you.
But did you say curly brackets is objects and the other one?
Right. Well, remember in the previous exercise, what were we doing? Var array is equal to this thing, right? It's an empty array. Var object. If you see this, this means this is an object. We'll see what it means. I was just giving you a hint. This will be filled, but we'll see. Okay? All right, let's take a break, 10 minutes, and then we'll start back on objects.
Oh, do mine has squiggles. Yeah, where do my braces go? Right there.
Oh, why are you using get and it? It could fuck. No,
Look
you
at
don't
one
need, yeah, you don't need to use get and it.
No, I know. Long.
Hey Daniel?
Yes.
I've got a question for the JavaScript course that I'm working on.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. I got it. So what I'm doing is so I'm just going to show this, right? I've got me so I can pull it from the but what I'm trying to do right now is I have the name of the Pokemon split into words that way. Because I could just say that.
What is
because what I want to do is I want to get each letter as an underscore.
Okay.
So I've got the names coming out as being split up as an array. And then I'm trying to write a for loop so that way I can, before I had it like this. So that way I can get this variable, and then as I'm iterating over this array, it's going to add, it's going to concatenate this string into here, so that I can.
So this is going to okay, so you have to assign it back. You have it right, you just have to assign it back. Yeah.
So I need to declare a variable in here.
Well, you can just use the same variables. So like what you're missing is, what is it called, blank?
Yeah, it's just blank name.
Blank name.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have plus, and you have something, right?
Yeah.
So what is happening? It's adding, but it's not storing it anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So what you have to do is you just have to add the same variable blank.
Oh, okay, so I do equal.
So it adds it and then stores it back. So adds it, stores it back. Adds it.
Okay.
Yeah. Yep.
Set poster.
I don't even know what.
It's
Read a game.
you do a word guess game or like a psychic game where like the computer will select a random psychic game. There's a psychic game where you pick a letter. The computer picks a letter randomly, and you have to
Guess that.
The other one's just making the game of hand.
Yeah.
So I figured I knew that there was a
So
Pokemon
you are
game.
making an Ajax call, but that's already.
Yeah,
Like,
I know.
Show me the Ajax call.
It's just right at the
Very good.
When I was doing this,
This one naturally is
this one, that's just this one. This one, did you do this one and run it? This one, no, they need to know. Oh, that one, that's what it is. I've seen that one forever, trying to figure out what it was.
That's it.
Thank you.
Yeah. Anybody ever wants a. So going back over your
Yeah, oh, I didn't run it.
well, I mean, that's what we did. Because I kept getting undefined. Well,
Yeah. I thought it was supposed to, but like they are strings. They are. Yeah, I don't know how to do that. Right. But I don't know why they are strings.
Right.
I used to do that.
That's why you can call the error function fire. Call them
Oh, it's been working.
yes.
They didn't allow permission to select.
Calling the function. So you have a function defined. Are you calling that function? So you have. So how many arguments do you need to pass? 3, right? How many are you passing right now? So you have double quotes. That's considered as well. You have to pass in 1, comma, second, comma, second. That's how the arguments are separated. So you have to do. Right now you have double quotes, and it ends over. It doesn't matter what's inside it. It's going to consider this as one argument because it's in one double quotes. So what you have to do is you have to separate these out in commas. So you have to say
So no quotes.
A,
With quotes.
yeah.
Around each one.
B, comma, C. So now these are 3 arguments. Arguments are separated by commas. That's what.
So when you're calling the function, you have to do commas around everything, or the quotes around everything.
Yeah.
Each one.
Each argument is separated by commas. Yes.
I know you did the number one, like, so then this other one was the vowel checker. Did you do that the same way for form if input,
Yes.
like if it's equal to a like
Yes.
vowel, and then it would run through and it would
Yeah, yeah.
Okay,
That's
so the exact
that.
same way.
Yeah, that's kind of just the logic. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. You'll have to check. You'll have to check each one, and then see if this is this. Right. So if this input is one of these, right? So if statement, as you're saying, and you can either you can create an array of this and then loop through it, or you can just write if statement saying if my input, which is x, is equal to a, or or if it is equal to e, or I, or this is or, right? If it is one of these, we did the and, right?
Yeah.
But we don't need the and over here because what you are trying to say is you're trying to say if my input is either a or e or I or o or u, then it means it's a vowel, right? So you cannot use and. So for or, the symbol is this, and this is your. This is the key next to your curly brackets. Next to your curly brackets. Yeah, the top one. Yes. Shift. It types in like. Oops, sorry.
This is gonna work, and then you do it.
Like this.
Oh,
Yeah, it's full.
it's full. Okay. That's why I was like that.
Yeah, sorry, it's full. Yeah, it's a double dash in a different language, so I kind of. Yeah. What is it?
What if that sentence is still not coming up after fixing it?
Crazy. Okay. So I got this.
Yeah, automatic. I did the automatic save it.
Well, you don't need to put that. So let's back it up really quick, and let's go to your responsive portfolio. So these are, obviously for your responsive and then if we scroll down, there's going to be a section called pivot pages. So here is where you will enable pivot pages for the top. So we'll just drop down where it says one. You want to choose faster?
That's what it got. It's central.
This is it's getting exactly. What you do? They come together.
Yeah, they come together.
I assume so. I don't know. Yeah. 45 each. Yeah. It's pretty heavy. Yeah. Is
it good?
Yeah, it's really good. Is it? Yeah, my HTML one is like back to front
With what?
Yeah, you only do front with me bookmarks.
Okay. Already?
Yeah, I mean, you'll do it once. I assume that the HTML CSS, when you start reading it, they kind of tell you they're like, it'll essentially read the file and back to the site, and then you'll be able to pick things out. But it's not.
All right, let's do the next one.
So far, it's that.
All right, everybody ready? Okay, so now I'm going to show you how to convert the two arrays into one single object. So the purpose of object is that you have properties and functions within an object. All right, you combine similar properties and you put it into one object. All right, now how do we do this? Since object is another variable, so I'm going to say var Captain Marvel. Okay. And then what did I say? This is how you declare an object, right? Now within this you can have properties and you can have functions. So we'll look at properties first. All right. So how do I declare property? My first property is called real name, colon, all right, and then the value. The syntax is you declare an object and then you declare a property. My property is, this is called a property, real name, and each has a value, and the value is Carol Danvers. Okay. If I want a second property, you do a comma, oops, comma. My second property is born, colon, and then you put in some value. Okay. Till now my properties, the data type for my properties is string. All right, both of them are string. I can also have numbers. Let's give her a string and say 100. All right. Come on. I can have numbers. I can have booleans also. So my property is called is Avengers. Okay, let's say true. Okay, so all of my properties that are related to my object come together and are part of one thing, right? So this is how I declare an object. Now my object, you see, I can have a string, can have a number, can have boolean, can it have arrays? Totally, it can have arrays.
So this was declaring an object?
What was that?
You said this was declaring an object?
Yeah, this is declaring an object, this part. And within the object, these are properties. Now I'm declaring properties, I'm assigning properties to my object. And the properties can be string, number, boolean, arrays. I'm just going to copy this.
You can choose an array in the object.
What was that?
You can select the array in the object.
You can select an array in the object.
Yeah, sure. The alias.
Uh-huh. I'm still not sure what the question was.
Things together and put them up into something else that you
Yeah.
put together and grouping it together.
So yeah. So what now I have a string, I have numbers, I have boolean, I have arrays. What is missing? Functions, good. We can have functions also. We'll get to that. Functions or methods, and then the new data type that we are just learning. Object. Objects can have objects also. Everything is fair game. So you can add an object also within an object. Now how do I do it? Same syntax, but the difference is my properties have to be in double quotes. All right. Always remember the properties have to be in double quotes. All of these will always be in double quotes, and these are depending on what your data type is. Yes.
Are properties always separated by commas?
Always separated by commas. Yes. Excellent question. All right. Let's suppose I can add some physical attributes, just like your driver license. They have like hair, height, and eye color. So let me add a property called physical. Kyle, I haven't forgotten. Give me a minute. Okay, and I'm trying to declare an object. So same syntax. Object is curly brackets, and then you can, within the object, I can have properties and values. So let me just copy this. Same thing.
So wait, what did you do there?
I put it in an object within my object. So how do I, what's the syntax? It's curly brackets again, and then you can have same properties, values, properties, values, properties, values.
So as long as you do colon and curly brackets.
It's an object, yeah. Yes, correct.
So why I guess the quotations are on the properties? Why is it necessary?
So that's the syntax, how JavaScript identifies these are properties. If you do it without, it's going to give you an error. That's all I can say. I'm not, but this is a syntax that has been agreed on, I guess. That's why you have to have a double quotes around the properties. Yeah. So basically, properties are the property names are always strings. That's what it is. So that's why they are always in double quotes.
Just some earlier learnings, I wasn't putting property in quotes.
Okay, were you doing it in JavaScript or was it a JSON object that you were getting in
JavaScript? But that's the only reason why I was curious.
Okay.
I'm happy. It makes sense to do it that way.
Right. Well, what you are saying, I understand in a different, when we get to that point, then you don't need quotes, but over here, I have not tried using with, I mean, I wonder if it gives an error or not. Let's see. We can see if it is able to access this or not. We'll see when we are trying to read it and see if that works. Okay. I'll keep this as a comment. It might actually work. I wonder if that's the... We'll see. Alright, so this is how you declare an object. Any questions on declaring an object? Alright? Yes?
You said the left names were the properties? Is that
The
right?
what?
The left names, like real name, foreign, string.
These are properties, yes.
All those.
All of these are properties.
Okay.
And these are values of these properties.
Values.
Okay. Now how do we access these properties? Alright, now let's look at it. I'm going to console log these properties. So the first thing is you put in your object name, which is Captain Marvel, okay, dot born, and that's it. Go ahead and run this.
So when you two objects, it's object dot property.
You're getting there. Yep. So first thing, this is the easiest one. So you see it says Boston MA. If you want to access any property, this is how you do it. You put in the object name dot property name. Okay. Now here's the, let's see, I want to output strength. Same thing. So I'm going to say Captain Marvel dot strength. Okay. Outputs 100. All right. Same with is Avengers. Now the real space name. This is a little bit tricky. I cannot do real space name. Oops. Auto corrected it, of course. This thing is not going to work. Alright, my property name has to be exact. So I cannot say real space name. Kind of gets confusing. Alright, I cannot also do this. Cannot do quotes also. This is also not going to work. Alright, the only way to access this property is using kind of array kind of syntax like this. Square brackets, double quotes, and then put the real name. And then you get the real name.
No dot.
There's no dot if you have a space in your property. You cannot use a dot.
So the other ones won't work.
Which one?
Top of it won't work, or they will work.
Top of one will also work. This if you want the top one. This will also work.
Okay.
All right. Yes.
So yeah, I was just gonna say, so yeah, if it's just one word, then you can use brackets or that.
Yeah.
More than one word.
Yes. Then you have to use the script. Yes. Now, please don't have spaces in your property names. Seriously, that's the standard is property name is kind of your variable name, and they follow the same syntax, same camel casing. So this is how you should be naming your properties. Just because you have the ability, don't use it. Once you get to reading somebody else's objects, you will see they won't have spaces, and you will have to access this using this. Usually, you will see accessing objects in this manner.
So
I have rarely seen these square brackets. Yes.
Sorry. So when you camel case it, you can get rid of the quotes and the square brackets.
Yes.
You
Yeah.
can get rid of
So
both.
now I can access.
Get rid of both.
Yeah, you can access this like this, right? Or you can access it with the dot notation. But I will highly recommend get in the habit of using dot notation and keeping your property names without spaces, because generally out there when you are reading somebody else's JavaScript objects, they will usually be in a camel cased one, and this is much easier to remember and access versus the square bracket one. Yes, John.
And because the output of the alias property is those four responses there, because those are outputs to that property, the having spaces in there is fine. Things like Captain Morgan as well.
This thing, yeah, why is it fine over here? Because these are values, elements inside, right? These are elements inside this. So this is not a property, this is actually a value of the property called alias, right? So I'm saying try make sure you don't have spaces. Again, if you have, this is how you access it. Now how do I access aliases? It's an array, right? So how would I access it? I will say dot aliases, all right? And then it's an array. How do I access my array? Square brackets and anything. Okay, this is how I would access my arrays. Oh, where is it? Oh, there it is. Okay. And then how do I access, let me complete it. How do I access my last object? So dot physical, and this is an object, so I can use the dot notation again. I say dot here. Yes.
When you did the alias with the square brackets and the zero, is that going to do all those lists?
No.
Or is it just going to do the first
What
one?
is the data type for alias? Aliases.
Gonna,
Is it a string, number, boolean, array, or an object? It's an array, right? How do you access an array? Using square brackets. So you're accessing
just the first one then?
the first, yes.
Okay.
You can put one, it will access the second one.
Okay, that's all I was asking.
Yep.
That one where you have the real name, why did you do that again? 'Cause you're saying usually
Spaces are equal.
Yeah.
Yeah. So spaces, generally speaking, by standard, you won't see spaces in properties. The option is there, you can add spaces, and then this is how you access with the square bracket. But generally, I'm saying this is the good standard, and this is how usually when you're getting data in objects from somewhere, we'll look at that, how we get that data. Usually, it's going to be in the camel casing format, and it's easier to access just using dot notation. Okay. All right. Any other questions? Oh, let's try this one. What he was saying, that might work. Let's say if I have a property name, what Kyle was saying that okay, yeah, it works. Mm.
So what worked?
So what Kyle was suggesting, if you remove the quotes also, double quote, that also works. So if I take the quotes out also over here,
That's so much less like.
yeah, there you go. But what, and this way, but what's the disadvantage of not having the double quotes here?
And real quick.
No, wait, what are we missing if you don't put double quotes?
I don't know.
Huh?
Yeah, spaces.
You can't have spaces. Yeah. So I cannot have. Yeah. I'm just saying if you don't. So this will kind of force you not to use spaces. There you go. Thank you. Thanks to Kyle for pointing that out. All right. Yes. Does somebody have a question?
No, I think that you have been doing the double parentheses for way too long. You should get into that single life because you said it doesn't know which one you do. But you said the companies dictate which one you do.
Right.
I feel like for too long they forced you to do that double parentheses.
Right.
And you just need to.
Are you trying to change his
No.
practice?
I'm trying to change you.
No. Oh yeah. No. So I will tell you. No. I will tell you where the habit comes from. So the habit in every other language other than JavaScript, you have to use double quote. There is no option of using single. Single quote has a different meaning in Java, C# or any other language. So my habit comes from because when I declare strings in Java or C#, the only option is to use double quotes, right? So it's kind of my habit, and that's what kind of carries over here. So that's why they put it for programmers like me. So if I want to become a JavaScript programmer, they want people coming over to this side. So they're like, well, you know what? We'll include this also. Go ahead and use this. But originally, yeah, they had single quotes, and it kind of confuses because single quotes in other languages has a totally different meaning. It's related to a string, but it has a different meaning. It changes the data type.
Weird.
Yeah, so that's why I use. But if you're comfortable with single one, you can start using single. I just remain consistent, and I've been using double quotes. That's why I use double quotes. Right?
AKA, you're not changing his practice.
Yeah.
Leave him alone.
Yeah. All right. Any other questions on this? Okay. Here's a little bit more tricky part. Kellen was mentioning functions. You can also put functions in objects, right? So let's create a function. Yes. I'm going to create a function called start fight. And this is how you declare a function in your object. So you put the name of the function, right? Colon, and what is the kind of like the data type? The data type is it's a function. So you say function, and then within the curly brackets is your body. All right. Let's console log start fight. Okay. And then how would I call this? Object name. And then dot start fight. What is undefined? What did I mess up? Well, start fight is working. There it is. There's something below. I have. Oh yeah, this thing. Okay. Oh no, still. What is undefined? I think I changed the property name and then I'm trying to access something that is not there. Alias is there. Physical. Line what?
30.
Oh, line 30.
Your console logging console.
Is that what I'm doing? Where? Oh yeah, I'm console logging the console. Thank you. Yeah. So I can just call this function. Oh, that's better. Okay. So you see, this is how calling it just like any other property, you call the function, and this will call this. Okay, this is how you do the function. Any questions so far? Because next part is even more confusing. Yes.
You can have a function without parameters or arguments?
No, you can put arguments. Same concept. You can put an argument over here.
You without one.
Yeah, I did it without one. Yeah.
And that's okay.
That's okay. Yeah, you can have functions without arguments. You can have functions with arguments, depending on use case. Right? We did the the adder, multiply, header, but you can have without also. This just means that I'm not using anything. I'm not expecting any input. I'm just going to do this. Yeah, but you can have something also. It's optional. Okay.
Start fight is the functional. Yes.
Start fight is a function name. Yes. Okay. All right, everybody ready for the more confusing part?
Yeah.
All right, here we go.
Like that wasn't.
So I want to access my properties within this function. Okay, I have a function which is part of this property, and I want to access real name. Okay, let's suppose I want to console log the real name. I want to say start. Let's say I want to add the name who's fighting, so I want to say real name plus start fight, right? So it should say Carol Denver start fight. Okay, right? I'm going to get an error. Real name is not defined, but I have real name over here. Okay, it is, yes, it is not in scope. So what is happening is when you type in just like this, JavaScript is looking for a real name variable that is outside this object. JavaScript is expecting this variable is defined somewhere on the top. So if I do it works. See, but this is not the one that I'm looking for. I'm trying to access the variable that is inside it. Now how do I do this? What I have to do, I have to tell how am I accessing real name over here? Object name and then the property, right? I have to do the exact same thing over here. I have to say and then it works. Okay? Huh?
Oh, it's like doing a join.
Doing a join, yeah. Alright? But this is still not right. So here's what's happening. So I already have this real name. This is right. But I have a real name which is already inside, but you will never see this. Instead, what you will see in the code is a different syntax. You will see this dot real name. So this is a keyword in JavaScript. What this does is, if you're using a sentence, let's say I'm saying Blair knows JavaScript well because Blair has been practicing. I wouldn't say Blair has been practicing. I won't repeat it. I would say because he has been practicing, right? In general English language. So similar to over here, if you put the object name, it is kind of redundant. You don't have to mention that this exists in this object. You just have to say this. Within this object scope, this refers to this object. All right, one more time. This keyword is basically saying that this property exists in this scope. It's somewhere over here. Okay? This keyword is saying that look for this property within this scope. All right, don't go outside and try to find that property. If I take this out, what is it doing? It is going to go outside this scope, this object, and try to look for that. I don't want that. I want to say, look for this property in this object. Okay? So if you're trying to access a property within the object, you have to use the keyword this. Otherwise, it will not work. All right, it's going to give you an error.
So you can't use Captain Marvel?
Generally, we don't use that. We use the keyword this. But I was telling that this means this object. Generally, you will never use the object name. You will always use this. Yes.
Does the space matter in the quotes?
In this one?
Yeah.
I put it so that there's a space over here.
Okay.
That's why. Yeah. This, anything in double quotes will just output exactly what I see on the screen. I just added a space because I wanted a space here. Yes, Jim.
So if you were looking for any of those properties, like you would put instead of this real name, this born, this string.
Exactly.
Okay.
So I will say this dot. You will see it. Visual Studio already brings up the console, kind of helps me, and then it will say Boston.
Boston, Massachusetts.
Yeah.
Yes, makes sense.
Yes, using the this keyword. Yes, that is how you do it. I was just trying to explain that what this means. It means this object, but please do not use this one. Always use this. And in the code, anywhere, you will always see the keyword this. It was just for explanation what it kind of translates to, so that I kind of get an idea. But always in the code, you will always see this. You will never see the object name being used anywhere. Nobody uses it. Okay? It's kind of hard to understand this the first time. That's why I showed you what it actually means.
And that's what you mean.
Yeah, if you want to access any property within your object, you use the keyword this, and then if you don't use the keyword this, what happens is going to look for a variable called born, which is outside this variable, outside the scope of this object. That's what it's looking for. Okay?
So it's just everything in the object.
Everything in this object. So if I collapse this, so everything in this object. Yep. And if you're accessing variable outside, then you cannot use this keyword over here. Okay, this over here totally means something else now. Okay, we'll see later on what it means, but over here outside the object, you have to put in the object name, and then you access it within the object. You have to use this if you want to access anything that is over here. Yes, Dante.
So underneath the object within the object, right? It goes like
Yes.
and
Good question. How do we access this one?
well, no, just like you end up with a comma there when you separate the things inside the object there. So when you don't have anything else to put inside the object, you still just put a comma.
So if it's an empty object,
Right down.
okay, give me the line number. Hold on. Give me the line number.
So line 20.
Line 20, okay?
Yeah. So
He's actually got another thing in
line in that object, and then you have the comma.
Yes.
So you separate everything with commas before.
Yes.
And then you put the function after the comma.
Yes.
Is that how you end, like, where you end putting in anything else inside the object?
Yes, so everything is a property within an object, and you have to separate it out by a comma. So this is one property, comma. This whole thing is one property, so comma, separate it out. This whole is one property, so separate about comma. The last one doesn't have a comma. When you end it, comma tells me that there's something coming. Okay? But yeah, the function is within the object, and the easy way to see if I collapse this, everything goes away. So the function is within the. If I didn't have a function, then I don't need this comma. So I'm going to end this like this. My object ends over here. Yeah. Okay. Awesome. So everything is a property, and these are called functions. So object has properties and functions. All right. Somebody else had a question. No? Okay. Should be next exercise. Well, let's do the next exercise. Let's see what this one is. So it's going to have a car object, and you guys need to, I think most of the stuff should be there. You guys need to fill in car, my first object. So you have to log or print out how would you access these properties. All right. Take a minute or two to look at the object, the car object, see what's happening. Very similar. Look at the functions, and then we will look what the exercise is asking. you guys go with the homework and then?
Sure.
Is this the JavaScript?
Yeah, the first. And then we have the checkpoint thing.
Oh, okay.
Alright, did everybody look over the object? What's happening? Car object, properties, methods. Okay. How do we log the car's make? Katie? Line number 52. How do we log the car's make? So I have an object over here. This is my car object, and I'm trying to get this make. I want to console log this Honda over here. Okay. So how do I do this? What's the code that I would write to get that make? What was it? So the question is, this is my car object, right? I want to console log the make. I want to console log this property. Okay. How would I go about that? So how do I access this object? What was that? You use the what? Well, this thing. This thing is usually if you are inside the object. So I'm not inside my object. I'm trying to access it from outside. So if I minimize this, you see I'm outside over here. So the first thing I want to do is console log, right? Now, what's my object name? What's the name of the object? Car. Okay. If I want to access a property, what was the syntax? You put a dot notation or a square brackets, right? So if I do dot, it should give me options over here already, right? And what am I trying to access? Make. So if I select make, this should output and give me the value Honda. Okay? You see it? Ali, you had a question or?
I was just going to asking.
Oh, okay, this one. Let me ask you a difficult one. Let me ask. Okay, what's going to be this one? Car dot model. Okay, straightforward. Because I'm trying to access the model, and model is a property over there. Car's mileage. Dot mileage, yep, same thing. Car dot mileage. Okay, let's run it to make sure it is working. Okay, so I have my make, model, and then I have my mileage. All right, what about the next one? Okay, Bree is helping. All right, what do I do, Bree?
Console log this drive to work.
Console log, and then what do I type in?
This.
This dot drive to work, and then that's it. All right, let's see. It says undefined.
We're not in the thing. We're not in
Do you see what Laura is saying? Laura?
the inside the. Sorry, I didn't know how to toss it.
Okay.
We're not inside the.
Yes.
We're not inside
So Bree, we are not inside this object right now. We are outside. We are trying to access these properties. If you minimize this, trying to access these properties outside this object. This object ends here.
So we have to go back up to there.
Right. So the first thing is,
Object.
the first thing is we cannot use this. We cannot use this outside the object.
Yeah.
It has a different meaning.
Okay.
Okay. So what do I replace this with? car, similar to it, right? So same thing, I'm accessing properties. My drive to work is also a function, which is just a property. Okay? Yes. All right, this is still not complete. What else do I have to do? What is it? Parentheses, all right? Because it's a function, I need to put in parentheses. And there it says, so I'm getting two alerts. I'm getting a console log and alert also, which is still undefined. And the reason, remember Matt was saying, because I was using it twice. So we can just remove this console log and just do a drive to work. Car dot, oops. Same thing, I'm just not console logging this because this function already has alerts inside it. Okay, you see the alerts were coming up. If I refresh this means this function is getting called. This is my old mileage. And it looks like it's adding 8 to my mileage. Okay, I don't know what the function is doing right now. I'm just calling this. So let's go back, and if I look at it, yeah, there it is. So this dot mileage and KD and Bree, why am I using this now? Because I'm inside the object. You see, this function is inside, so if I have to access anything, I have to use the this keyword. Because I'm saying this variable property only exists within my object, so I have to use the this keyword. Okay. What about the Joffrey? What about the line number 67? How would we run the cars? Car dot drive around the world. Parentheses or not? No? It's a function, right? So it has to have a parenthesis. Well, you're just taking a guess if it's a boolean, it's a true or a false. So it's a function, you always need to have a parenthesis when you're accessing or when you're calling the function. Okay? Alright, last one. Is it still a function here? Yeah. Same thing. Car needs a tune. Okay. Good to know. All right. Any questions?
So if you didn't have that alert in there, we could have done the console.
Yeah, you could do console. Yeah, doesn't matter. Okay. Question? Good. No? Not good?
No, I'm good.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
Yes, Matt.
What was the question, Matt?
Can we reference objects from a different file? Yes, you can. Yeah. I'll show you an example in a little bit, but yes, you can totally can. And that's kind of like the downside of JavaScript, actually. Yeah. I don't know why. You can access, everything is global. You can access anything from anywhere. Yes.
Can we still use that even when we don't have an alert? Or is that only when we have an alert that we use outside around? Like, because we use that because we have an alert on the
No. It has nothing to do with the alert.
Oh.
Okay. So I have no idea what this function is doing. I just want to call that function. Now this function inside has alert, prompt, or console log. It doesn't matter. All I know is that there's an object called car, and within that object there's a function called drive around the world. That's all I know. Now within that function there's a prompt, there's an alert, there's a console, there's some calculation going on, there's something going on. I don't care. I don't know. Right now, why the alert is coming? Because this function is defined to have alert inside it. That's why you see the alert. Okay, you can replace this with console, alert won't come up. You can replace this with a prompt, you will get a prompt. It doesn't matter. The important part is I have an object called car, and then I have these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 properties, and 1, 2, 3, 4 functions. All right, objects are always going to have properties and functions. Well, these are optional. It can have properties or function, but these are the two things that every object can or cannot have. So it can have a functions and it can have properties. So my car object has properties. These are basically attributes of a car. What are the attributes? What's the make of the car? What is the color? What is this? And these are functions. These are basically verbs. These are actions. What does my car do? It drives to work. It drives around the world. It gets tuned up. It gets all those stuff.
Like before we tried to do console.log with that stuff inside, then we had to erase it because of the alert, right? Or why
Say
did
that again?
Like before we did console.log where we did that.
Right. Okay. So why? Right. It was giving. It gives me undefined. When I do a console log this, it gives me undefined. Why does it give me undefined? No, not because of alert. It's giving me when I do a console log and I do something inside it. Console log is what is it saying? It's going. You're going to return something over here. It has a value, right? Now when I do log for car dot drive to work, it gives me undefined because what am I saying? I'm saying console log the return or whatever the output of this is, what the return is. Do I have a return in drive to work? I don't. I'm not returning anything from drive to work. So that's why it says undefined. All right, let me go ahead. If you change this and say return drive to work. Now if I do the console log, now it's going to work because I'm getting something back. No, alert has nothing to do with. Oh, all right, again, guys. Alert has nothing to do with that undefined that we are getting. You see at the bottom, I already get drive to work. The reason I'm getting undefined is because I'm not returning anything from my function. Right. Alert is something that it cannot print out. Even if it wasn't alert, it was a prompt. I can totally take these things out, and if I remove this, it will still give me undefined because I'm not returning anything. It has nothing to do with alert.
When you don't have anything to return,
you will,
one,
yes.
You can use the console log.
Yeah.
Okay.
Console log only will work if you're returning something. Yeah. Okay. No, good question. I'm glad it's clarified because yeah, this is the point to clarify before we go even more deeper. Okay. All right. Any other questions? Okay. So now you guys do the next exercise on your own completely because that is more difficult and. Yeah. All right, let's do this exercise as do it in like pair programming. Work with somebody, your neighbor, and then it's a little bit bigger exercise. It's not difficult. It's something that we have. Everything has been covered. Right? It's just like everything is coming together, so it might look daunting. Okay, so what you have to do is use the code from the previous activity. So you already have the base code written. All right. So you saw the activity from previous one, and Nick, can you post the solution for that one so that they can use it? So you can take this solution and use that as a starting point of this activity. So what's the thing? Users can enter keyboard input. Actually, let me. What does it tell you if I say users can enter keyboard? Like out. How do you? What was it? On key. Yes. What is it? The DOM event that you saw in the. What was the activity? RPS. Same thing over here. So. So what am I doing? I'm trying to get the key up events. I'm going to use those functions, the DOM event. So what would be it? It's going to be document.keyup. Similar syntax from the previous exercise. All right, that would be a starting point. And then you're going to capture what the user has hit. Okay. Each of the cars methods are assigned a key. Okay, so how many functions do we had? We had 4. So there's a honk method. You can assign the key H to it. Okay, and then there was a drive to work or something. Drive to work. Okay, if somebody presses the key D, this is the function you call. If they press H, you call this function. And then drive to
Drive around the world.
drive around the world, you can assign W or A or whatever. They press W, then call this function. All right, these are the ones that already exist. And in addition to that, there are saying a global function called rewrite stats that logs the car's make, model, color, mileage, and is working status to the console. So what does when they are saying a global function, what does it tell us? Is it yes, exactly? It's not inside the object. You have to write a function called rewrite stats that exists outside the object, right? Same syntax. The first exercise we did. How do you create a function? You say function name. You're going to say function rewrite stats. Okay, and this is outside the object, not inside. Okay, and what does it do? It prints out cars, make, model, color, mileage. And how would I do that? I'm going to call that object now. I'm going to say car dot model console log this, car dot mileage console log this, console log this. Okay, yes.
And do you have to console.log each one, like console.log the car's make, and then console.log the car's model?
Yes.
You know, or can you?
It's up to you. You can put it in one statement.
Yeah.
It's fine. Yeah, it's up to you. The purpose is that you are able to log these things. Yeah, you can put it in one statement saying cars plus this plus this plus
Yeah.
add spaces, add dash, whatever. Yeah, it doesn't matter.
You like have to use the plus, right? You can't just.
Yeah, if you're combining, then you have to use the
This
plus.
one or
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah. So yeah, you can do it in one line. You can do it in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 lines. It's up to you. The purpose is that you understand and you call that function. And okay, here's the question: the rewrite stat. Where is this going to be called?
Outside of the object.
Outside. Let's see what it says over here. These letters also trigger a global functions. All right. So as soon as you press H, my function called honk gets called, and this function exists inside the object. All right. After this, I have to call this function. Inside, yes, exactly. So I'm calling this rewrite inside my object. Again, use the solution from the previous one. Oops. Oh, did I close? Oh, I did. Open. What's this one? Okay. Yeah, so you can use the previous, and I already solved this, so this should be good, yeah. So I'm going to minimize this. I already have my object. I have all these functions. I'm going to kind of bring them closer so I can see. Okay, so this is my object. Let me minimize these so I can see my object better. I don't care what's inside the functions. It's already written for me. You know what? This is annoying, so I'm going to change this to console log. Otherwise, it kind of blocks my whole screen, so I'm going to just change this to console logs. Again, you guys don't have to do it. I'm doing this just so that it's not in my face every time I run this program. What is it?
She's watching me and asking what it was because it's changing my alerts. So
Yeah, I
it's not
changed
popping
it.
up.
Okay, so this is my object. This is it. I don't have to do anything here. You guys didn't see the instructions? Nick, did he post the exercise, the card game? No, the README. It has a README, right? The instructions. You guys get the instructions? Got it? Okay. There it is. First thing, you have to capture the input from the user. Ali, do you know how do I capture the user input? The keys.
It's the not quite. Like it's something like this document.
Yeah. Dot key up. Yeah. On key up. Yep. Excellent. Trying to think if I write it like the complicated way or do I write it the easy way.
Which one are you doing right now?
This is the complicated way. Yeah. What do you guys use? How did you guys use? Did you guys do like this? Yeah. Okay, I'll keep to this one. All right. Quick question, Reggie. Tell me. Document dot on here. Break down this document dot
on here.
Yeah.
So document is.
What do you think is the data type of document?
Data type is going to be
just study. Yes, object. Why is it object? See the dot notation? You remember how do we access the properties of an object using dot notation? So document is actually an object. All right. Yes, document dot and on key up is a function in the document.
So do we need the parentheses after on key up?
Yes, that's the more complicated way to write it. But yeah, yes. Basically, on key up is a function. How about this one, Reggie? Console is a?
That's gonna be a.
Console is also an object. You see what's going on? Console is an object which has a function called log.
That's why you told that.
Yep.
Later, right?
How about this one? Maybe I shouldn't tell you this and make you confused, but I'm going to tell you anyway. Alert is a function, but alert is also part of an object, and the object name is window. The thing is, window is a global object that is always available to you, so that's why we don't actually write it. With that logic, actually console is also part of the window object. So window has an object called console which has a function called
prompt and confirm are the same way.
They are also part of the window object. But window is globally available, so we don't write the window, but it has the same purpose. Look up the documentation for console, log, and window, and you will see window actually has a lot more functions. It has all these: console, confirm, close, crypto. I don't know what this is. So window has a lot more window, and even console has a lot more properties and functions. Assert, clear, count, dir, memory, profile, table. It should have a log somewhere. Log, info. So basically everything is a, anything that you see as a dot notation is an object.
So can you just write log instead of like console log?
No.
Can you write just log?
No, you cannot write it. Why you cannot write only object that is globally available within our knowledge is the window one. So it's actually window.console.log. But you are getting the, you don't have to write window because this is the only global available object. Console is part of that, that's why you cannot. Log is part of console, that's why you cannot skip console.
So we can never use that if we're going to declare an object that's already taken.
What is it? Yeah, you get it. Yeah. There'll be some conflicts. I wonder what happens if you do it. Try it and see, but yeah. But these are all defined ones. Alright, then how do I capture the key from here? Who can tell me this? Declare what? Declare the keys.
So declare like honk is H, drive toward is D.
Declare what? Keys? I'm just typing what you are saying. Give me the code.
No, so
What's the code? How do I type in the code?
because you would want to declare the letters, right?
Yeah.
So user can enter keyboard
Yes.
letters, so you would declare what honk is as a letter.
Okay, so tell me the code.
So var honk
Var
equals H.
Equals H.
And var drive toward equals D. As you've written before.
Okay. So here's what's going on. First thing is I'm trying to capture what the user hit.
So the user, so then we have to declare the user in.
Okay. So what do I say? Var user? User what? Okay. And is somebody help? Alright, Ali is going to help. Alright, go ahead.
User keys.
Okay, user keys. Okay. Equal? Ali?
I'm over here jobbing. I'm trying to plant the seeds in the soil, and you're not saving me.
I was just
He doesn't
Marvel.
the function.
Yes, exactly.
All these people talking.
It's usually something like that, though, isn't it? where it's like equal to what you just thought it was.
Yes.
So then,
Event.keys.
There she is. Thank you for
Guys,
that.
go back and look at those exercises, please.
Hey, I was on the right track.
Yeah.
Does anybody know what Google is?
Yeah.
I was on the right
Google
track.
is your friend.
I just needed some help.
Start Googling. Start looking at docs.
I Googled it, and it was using jQuery and switched
Well, if you don't
statements, and I
know,
was like, damn it,
Google
I need those right now.
Google.
All right.
Sounds like I have no idea what he's trying to type.
So, right, this is again from the rock paper, same exercise. You get event, and event.key will tell you what somebody has pressed. Okay, and what I do is before I proceed, I just log to make sure I'm getting what I'm expecting. So I'm going to remove this. Let's run this.
What's event.key? What is that called again?
So it's under the on key markup. Meaning,
Uh-huh.
So in the event that the user pushes a key, this is the function it's supposed to. But we haven't declared the keys yet. So right now we don't have to declare it's any key.
You see?
Yeah, it's any key at this point because we haven't declared any key.
So yeah. So what Bree is saying that what is happening that I want to capture on what the user has pressed first of all, right?
Yeah.
And your rock paper scissors game. What we did. This is the function. This is how you do it. This is document dot on key up means you press and then when you leave, then this will execute. If you keep pressing, you will notice nothing will happen. It's on key up. When you press and leave, then the key goes up and this will come in. And in the event.key, event is again an object. Why? Because it has a dot notation. So event object has a property called key, which will tell me what the user has pressed. Okay? That's what I did. Did I console log so to make sure that my function is working? So
taking whatever key that I press.
whatever. Yeah, right now it is whatever.
Can you choose? Can
Yes.
you make it to where you can do
You can declare
a specific key?
Yeah, you can restrict it also. What you can say is if event.key is not equal to HDW or something, then don't do anything. So you can do that too. You can do all sorts of things. Yeah, you can restrict that too. Right now, I'm just interested in this one. So I do this, and then I'll just do one. So I have a. So next thing, what I have to do if condition, if statement, and I have to say if the user key. Let me make it key singular because I'm pressing one key. If user key is equal to H, what was the requirement? I need to call the honk method. And how do I call that method? Car dot honk. Excellent. Okay, so if I press anything, oops, not here.
Is it because you took away your alerts?
This is because I took this away. Okay, now if I press anything other than H, you see nothing is happening. If I press H, then I get honk honk. Honk honk. Anything else is just console logging because I have this. So if I comment this out, refresh, nothing happens. If I press H, then it will otherwise you can keep pressing, it doesn't work. Okay. Similarly, you can do for DW and all the rest of the stuff. All right. The last thing I will do is the rewrite stats. It has to be a global function, so it's going to be outside my car object. So what do you have to do? Just create a function. Function. I'm just going to copy the name. Oops. Here's the readme. Oh, there it is. Okay. And I'm going to log. I'm going to just log one of them. car.make. Okay, and then you can add all the stuff. car.model. Okay, and you're going to do these two. So this is a global function. Why is it global? Because it is outside this object. Okay. And then it is saying I need to access it everywhere. So inside this hong function, I can access my rewrite stats function. Okay. Let's see what happens now. Oops. So I press H, it goes says Honda, it says Hong Kong, this means it came over here, this line, and then I'm calling this global function which console logs my make and model, and that's why I see the make and the model. Okay, questions? Guys got the hang of it?
So you declared the function rewrite stats outside of the object?
Outside of the object. Yes. Yes. I can access global variables and functions inside my object. But if I want to access anything within my object, I have to use this keyword. Okay. Questions? Which was it? What was that? Right what?
Red stuff inside of it. Can you expand it?
This is it?
Show it inside.
Oh,
The inside.
so inside I'm calling.
Yeah, okay.
I'm just calling it. Yeah.
Where's the rewrite stats? Where did you put that?
I put it inside the honk. Yeah. So the point is that if you have a global function, you can call within your object also. Okay, without this keyword, without worrying about anything. But it has to be a global. Global, I mean, it has to be outside, declared outside. Okay.
Can you go back to var car?
Var car. Yeah.
Okay, so var car doesn't it need to come after the function for the on key up?
Doesn't var car needs to come after on key up?
Because it's going to read the code sequentially.
Okay.
So it has to get input from the user.
Okay.
So it has to get a character from the user. Which
Right.
is going to be, say, for instance, H.
Okay.
So it gets that character.
So what var car, am I calling it or am I calling it as a function? Is it going to execute anything? It will read this. Is it doing anything? It's not doing anything because I'm not calling, I'm not using it anyway. I'm just declaring.
Those are your stored functions.
Yes.
Okay.
I haven't called them. This one, have I called this function yet? No, I'm not doing, I'm just declaring it, right? So that's why it will just stop over here.
So
This is the real view. This is the action. That as soon as somebody press, this is always going to be the first one that's going to get hit.
And we always put out declarations first.
Oh, this one? Yeah, I mean, it's a good practice. But here's the tricky part. You see, I declared my function write stats here, but I'm using it inside my object, which is declared on the top. Okay? You see what I mean? So I created the function here, but I'm using it over here. I'm using within my object. Okay? Now JavaScript is weird. We'll look at it why this is happening. But JavaScript kind of takes these things and push it to the top. So even though if you're declaring at the bottom, it will recognize that this function has been declared somewhere. It's kind of, it guesses, right? So at this point, JavaScript comes here and it will take a guess that there exists a function that you have declared somewhere. So it's going to let you slide over here. But if this function is not anywhere in the code, then it's going to start complaining. At this point, it will say, okay, there is a function that's going to be there, so I'm going to leave it for now. And that's why it works. But we'll see this in more detail with JavaScript. That's a little bit more advanced concept. Yes?
So the rewrite stat inside, do you have to put that under get tuna,
Yeah, looks like the
all
instructions
those?
were.
You have to
Yeah.
put them in
Yeah.
all those for it to work?
Yeah, I just did it one, just to give an example. But from the instruction, looks like you have to put it in everyone. Okay? Here's the... Let me show you one more thing. Right? Because I just want to leave you even more confused by the end of the class. Yeah. No, I'm like, no, I'm going to make it even more confusing.
So the solved is going to be uploaded, right?
What was that?
The solved for this is going to be uploaded.
Yeah, that'll be there.
All right.
Yeah, those will be there.
I was like, more
All right. Okay, let's take a look at this one. This is. Oh, scope. There it is. Okay. This is the next. I'm going to do this for you. All right. Here, take a look at this. Let's suppose I have a function. Oops. Why didn't that work? Oh, man. I was like, I have to type the whole thing.
I was like trying to shorten it here.
Yeah. Like, nope. Can't do that. Function and message. What does this mean? I have a function that has one parameter called message. Okay, and I'm going to console log that message. Message. Okay. And then I call this function, first function. So what should be my output? What should be in the console log? Look at this code. Oh, sorry. Okay, the better? Yep. Okay, excellent. So now here's the interesting part. What should happen if I do message? Message is not defined, but I have message over here. Nope. Yes.
So
excellent. So as Blair is saying, this has to do with scope. Anything that is inside your function is not visible outside. It remains within these two curly brackets.
So right now it's just saying it's undefined because there's nothing attached.
Right, because there's nothing attached to it. And to make it work, what do I have to do? I have to say var message. This is global message. And now it should work. What was that, Kellen? Right. So the scope is, I'm going to get an error when I do console log message. Why? Because this message variable only exists within the function scope. It's not visible outside. Okay? And if I want to make it visible, I do this, and now it should work because I have declared a variable message and I'm outputting this. Okay? New message. Let me make this new message. Now this new message is, I can access it inside the function though. Anything that is global variable is, the scope is, it's available everywhere. It's available within the function, outside the function, it doesn't matter. Okay? It is so crazy that it is even available in a different file. Oops. You see this? So what I did over here, if you look at my scope.html, all right, I have two JavaScript files, scope and scope2, right? Both are part of this. A variable that I declare over here is so global that you can access it from a different file. That is the most weirdest part of JavaScript. I hate this part. I hate it.
What? Well, like, what would be the reason?
There's no reason, exactly. There's no reason. Why would we have that? It's crazy, yeah. And I have debugged, spent hours because I didn't realize that this variable is available everywhere, and it was like getting overridden. But here's so.
So it's like anywhere in your root directory tree.
Yeah, as long as it is added in this HTML file, everything is fair game. Everything is global.
That seems just weird.
That seems weird. All right, look at this now. Look at this. This is even fun.
Now he's just taking out his anger.
Yeah.
I hate JavaScript so much. I'll show you everything that's wrong with it.
What language do you program in mostly?
Java.
Really?
Yeah. I'm a backend developer. Okay, so what should happen? What should happen right now? So it's going to output 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay? Right? Now remember function, in function if I have this variable declared inside, let's suppose if I do var message to inside function, can I access this outside? No, so I cannot do message to, gives me an error. Okay, makes sense because it is inside my function. So within these curly brackets, it's inside, so I cannot access it. But this doesn't work for loops. So if I do log I, it will gladly output 5. It keeps running. See what happened? So this anything that is inside your for loop, there's no scope over here. It doesn't care. It's going to be a global variable.
What?
Even if it is, yeah.
It's because functions are different.
Functions is different. If you have it, so why do I see 5 over here? So it ran 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. It came to 5 and this was false. It exited out, but the value of I is 5, right? So it's going to exit out, going to come here, it's going to put 5 here. So this I is actually visible even outside the for loop. Crazy. Hate it. Right? That's why if you try to reuse this I variable anywhere else, yeah, you'll get a wrong value. That's why you see me using K, J, and all that stuff. Alright? So the scope is only valid for functions, and we'll see more in detail later on. And okay, let me show you one last function because this isn't confusing enough, so I want to confuse you even further. All right, so this is the reason I'm showing you this one, because this might be used in your homework also. So if you want to loop through these languages, what do you do? For var I equals to this. Okay, now there's another function called for each. Okay, I just want to show you how to use for each, please do look at the documentation. I'm going to upload these solutions. You can see how it works. All right. How for each works is you put in your array name dot, it's a JavaScript function, dot for each. Okay. Now for each takes an argument, which is another function. So what can we pass in as an argument? We can pass a variable, right? Maybe saying we pass in numbers, pass in booleans, arrays, and blah blah, right? We can also pass in other functions as arguments. Okay. What do I mean by this? Let me create a function. If I create a function called report, it's going to just report whatever there is, and it takes a parameter and then it just console logs this str. Okay. So I have a function at the bottom, report. You pass in a string, anything, and just going to console log that. All right, pretty straightforward. And in my for each, come on, in my for each, I can pass this function report. Okay, so again, let me go back. For each is a special function, as a JavaScript function that expects another function as an input, as an argument. Right? You have to give another function. I declared a function and I passed it. Right? And this is, we will look at this in more detail at some point also. This is called callback functions. Any function that you pass in as an argument, this is called a callback function. All right? What callback means? It's something that, let's suppose you're working on your assignment, you call up your friend, you're stuck somewhere. You call up a friend and you say, hey, I'm on the section C, help me out with this. And your friend said, well, I'm on section B right now, but when I get to C, I'm going to call you back. Right? This is exactly what this does. It says for each report. So this function says, I'm going to do something, right? But when I get to a part, I'm going to call this function, right? We don't know at what point is going to call this function, but this function is assuring us that the function that you pass me, I'm going to call this function at some point in time. Okay, and that's what callback means. We'll look at more detail, but understand that for each takes in an input, which is going to be a callback function, is going to be another function. What this is going to do is, if I run this, it's already running. It's going to loop through and output anything that you pass in. So what is happening now? I have languages array. I have English, Norwegian, Spanish. I say for each one of these, go ahead and print this out. So I'm saying for each, call this function. So for English, is going to call this function, is going to output English. Then for Norwegian, is going to call this function, is going to output this. Spanish is going to call this function and output this. Yes, ma'am.
So the for each makes the item from the array the parameter for the report call?
Yes, yes. And why does it do it? Because I have created a function. It is expecting a function that has one argument in it. So you have to declare, if you declare without one, it's not going to work. So you have to have a function that has one argument. Exactly one argument, yeah. I think it's expecting only one. It's not expecting 0, but look at the documentation. I know at least it expects 1. Yes?
So you said the function inspects another function as well?
So this function is called a callback function. And what this is saying is, when this function is running, do we know what this function does? We don't. We are just calling this function, right? Dot for each. It's a function we are calling, right? What it is saying is that at some point in the execution, there will be a line which is going to call this function that you pass in. At some point, like let's suppose you have a for each defined somewhere, and you have lines of code. At some point, it has in the code that is going to call the function that you're going to pass in as an argument. That's what it says. And what is going to happen when it calls is going to do this. It's going to console log whatever. Okay?
Inspects another function as an argument.
Yes, it expects another function as an argument, which has one argument over here. Right? Give it a try. Sleep on it. Look at the documentation, and you can discuss it later on in the next class also. But look at the documentation for each and see how it is working. The callback function is a really important subject. We're going to cover it in more detail. But basically, almost everything in JavaScript is a callback function, so we cannot skip. So this is the easier one. Take a look at it. Look at the documentation. We can discuss it in the next class also. Okay. Okay. So for now, these are going to introduce you the homework due for next week really quickly, and then after that, we have an optional. It's not a quiz. It seems like a quiz, but it doesn't go towards your grades or anything. It will be on your Git, HTML, and CSS concepts. Again, it doesn't count toward your grade. The only purpose of that is to see how I am teaching or how you guys are getting the concept. It goes to higher level, and it's like a post test. They're trying to understand how much the concept the students are getting. So it'll be like a multiple choice. Again, it's it's going to take like 10 minutes or so. It's good for you guys that you guys kind of know how much knowledge you have gained. All right. Again, if you skip it, still okay, but I would recommend take it. It doesn't count towards anything, and you guys kind of know that how much Git you know, how much HTML, how much CSS concepts you know. Okay. So Nick is going to do the homework, and then he's going to send the link out for the quiz. Well, no, it's not a quiz. It's just it's almost.
It's an assessment.
It's an assessment. That's the right word.
There you go.
Survey assessment.